Okay, with that, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 9:31. Additions, deletions to the agenda, administration.
Just the update to the RCMP item that was emergent that we added last night, but nothing beyond that.
Council? Not seeing any. If I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented, Councillor Whitten,
Motion that council adopt the February 26, 2026 regular council meeting agenda is presented.
thank you, Councillor. Call the question, all in favor? And that's moved. 4.1, February 12th, 2026, Councillor meeting minutes. Anything there? Seeing any?
Okay.
Councillor Dean?
I would like to make this motion then, that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes of February 12th, 2026 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question, all in favor? That's moved. We have, this is a delegation at 10 o'clock, so we through here, a couple if we can. 7.1 bylaw 637-26 annual ATV borrowing bylaw. Mr. Orwa?
Good morning, His Worship and members of council. Before you is the bylaw 637-26 annual ATV borrowing bylaw. And you recall this was during the regular meeting of council February 12th. Administration was directed to include a clause establishing a maximum interest rate. And it's also just maintained the same attachments that we had. The first one is the current one with the attachment. If you can bring, the only thing we've added in is the one highlighted in yellow that council had requested. So I did discuss this extensively with ATB, and that's where we added the clause that was requested by council. Apart from that, there's nothing else, and we had the first reading already, so just requesting council, if council agrees with the item number 7 in yellow, request for the second and third reading of this bylaw.
Thank you, Ms. Orwa. Councillor McNeil?
Thank you. I'm prepared to make a motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 637-26 being the amended annual ATV borrowing bylaw.
Councillor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question, all in favor? That's moved. We have a second motion for third and final reading. Councillor Wright?
Make a motion that council give third and final reading to bylaw 637-/26 being the amended annual ATV borrowing bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call that question, all in favor? And that's moved. 8.1, request to host delegation of the county government of Tana River, Kenya. Mr. Ferris?
Thank you, Chris. So we received a request to have a delegation from Kenya come to Woodlands County, see how we operate administratively, operations-wise, also see the functionalities of our council chambers, that sort of thing as a fact-finding mission, so to speak, for this association in Kenya. Quite honestly, we think learning not only how a different government agency somewhere else functions from a public service delivery, but also to share the knowledge and also the industry that we have, particularly around forest management and the industries that we have here that could potentially assist them over there, is beneficial along with our water and wastewater treatment systems. And so we are just seeking approval to that in principle. We work with this group to get more detail on the objectives, the attendance, the costs. We think it's a good thing, but we want to also make sure that we're being prudent with every dollar that we spend. And so we would just like the authority to get a much more detailed program and budget prior to formally committing. But we think it's a good step, and we would like to do the exchange, but we would leave it up to council.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Discussion from council? See, I believe it's tentatively, I read the letter they sent, and it sounds like a lot of the flights and the costs and the big end that they're bearing all that coming over here regardless. I'm not sure if we're one of a few municipalities that they're coming to visit. Again, that was fairly unclear in the letter, but
The discussions that we've had to date through the DREAV is that they will be looking to do a bunch of other municipality reviews as well. And that's part of the request as to why we're asking that you approve it in principle, because we're not 100% sure if we're the organizers of that or if it's another relation of them doing it. So we wanna make sure those details are figured out before we just jump on board.
Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, through the chair to Matthew, yeah, I absolutely think this is a great opportunity. The part that really was interesting for me is that I would like to see their ag component. That would be really super interesting to see what kind of, how they operate there compared to how we operate here.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? I wanna make a motion. Councillor Whitten?
That council approve hosting the Canyon delegation in June 2026 in principal and direct administration to liaise with the delegation to conform objectives, attendees, scheduling requirements and associated costs, and to report back to council with a detailed program and budget prior to any financial commitments being made.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion to the motion? Seeing any opposed to that question, all in favor? Let's move. Moving to council reports. Sorry, Councillor Whitten?
Just had the GMP meeting on, what day was that? What day was our GMP?
February 17th.
The 17th? Okay, yeah, on the 17th, yeah, no, the 18th,
18th, sorry.
Wednesday on the 18th. And then last night we had library board meeting at Fort Assiniboine, and I'd like to give a shout out to the two operators, Megan Patrician and Jenna Wright, for the great job that they do. It's fantastic. The community involvement is unbelievable, the stuff that goes through there, the children and the book groups and everything that they do. They're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Whitten? Councillor McNeil?
Awesome. Thank you. Actually, it's been a super busy couple of weeks. So with Growing the North Conference in Grand Prairie, I attended along with fellow councillors. So the overarching theme that I took from the conference was the importance of telling our story. And that was basically through how they had set it up throughout the conference, was the idea of telling individuals sharing their stories, businesses sharing their stories, and the municipalities sharing their stories. And that essentially, basically in the age of AI and accelerating technological change, many economic barriers are being leveled, and rather than diminishing humanity, their message was that AI appears to be amplifying the importance of authenticity. And as the tools become more accessible and the competition becomes more global, people increasingly are gonna choose to support businesses, communities, and leaders that they trust and whose stories they resonate with. So they had some great insights, and I know there's gonna be, I'm sure, some other shares about that as well. One of the keynotes was Leonard Brody, a futurist. He was emphasizing three drivers of economic development, being entrepreneurs, capital, and culture. And what he was talking about was, if we want talent and we're looking at attracting skilled labor forces, that we must, focus on building the communities that attract it, and the culture matters. He gave the example of, in Grand Prairie, for example, he said if they're looking to attract, you have to have good coffee shops, you have to have, food, access to restaurants, and some higher end choices when they're looking at attracting this type of skilled labor. So then there was a really good session, actually I thought it was one of the best sessions of the whole conference, on Indigenous engagement with Chris Sankey, and his message centered on trust, reconciliation, and respectful dialogue. And, he mentioned, of course, about when we're engaging with our partners, that things move at the speed of trust, and that he emphasized meaningful change requires difficult conversations handled with respect. And I thought that was good messaging when it came into when we're talking even just in our, with our regional partners, as well as developing some of these, more cross-provincial partnerships and stuff like that as we look in bigger industry. So then there's a number of others that I attended. One other one to mention, the Northern Sky Corridor was brought up. And this was a presentation by James Lepan. And the Northern Sky Corridor, they have it for basically going through from Edmonton, but showing through Edmonton up to the Northwest Territories, through, I should say, Alberta up to the Northwest Territories. And Woodlands County and Whitecourt were identified actually as stops in the presentation that they provided. So it's something that it would provide opportunities for destination marketing alignment, shared branding, and possible infrastructure positioning and expanded business visibility. So it's something that's on my radar, and I'm gonna explore into that a little bit further. So then February 20th, I attended the course Leading Through Challenging Times with the EDA. It was a mental well-being for community leaders. Specifically, what it was talking about was disasters and how we can support, whether it's our administrative leadership or our elected leadership through disasters. And they had some really good tools to focus on some mental well-being. So Councillor St. Martin and I attended that and brought back some information through our Economic Development Committee as well that we had presented there. So, and I'm sure there'll be more up and coming as at EDA, it looks like this was a pilot launch of this program, and it was extremely well received in the room, and it sounds like it's something that they'll likely be putting forward, and I would highly recommend anyone attend. Okay, then also February 18th, of course, we had their Governance and Priorities virtual meeting. The 19th, we had a networking dinner, so with chamber representatives and council from the town. Also at the conference, there was just a ton of great networking opportunities. I made some really good connections with some of the Greenview representatives, as well as had some great interactions with the town. Kind of a shout out to our Chamber of Commerce. They had 4 members that attended this year, and they had a really good contingent, so from our regional area. Also February 19th was the Community Futures Yellowhead East Board meeting. I didn't attend because I was at the conference, but I did want to highlight from the notes that there's a new $100,000 investment in tourism and entertainment in Whitecourt. There was a $34,000 investment in a restaurant hospitality in the Woodlands County. There was a note, the Executive Director of Community Futures Network of Alberta stepping down, and some governance training opportunities, that they've had experienced organizational uncertainty related to contract extensions. So this is one of the concerns they've had, is that they've been told their funding is gonna be extended for 1 year. And on account of that, they attribute the loss of one of their staff members because they haven't been able to extend their contract beyond a year, and it created uncertainty, and that person took a position elsewhere. So continued development of capital and operating models for a business proposal. Then February 23rd, I attended the H-Park Health Practitioners Attraction and Retention Committee meeting. And the meeting, of course, focused on strategies to attract and retain healthcare practitioners and talked about what we're going to be doing over the course of the year. But there was something there I wanted to share a sincere shout out from EDO Rhonda Woods with the town, who was complimenting administration and staff on your Welcome to Woodlands County initiative. And that's a part of the package now that will be going out to the local health practitioners and so on. So it's a really nice addition. And also a very specific shout out to our communication specialist, Natasha. And they were really complimenting the work that Natasha's been doing and seeing the social media posts, and so we wanted to share that kudos from the town. Thank you. And also February 24th, I attended a municipal affairs seminar about grants in your municipality, and A significant portion of the presentation, hosted by Ryan Barber of Municipal Affairs, and a significant portion of the presentation discussed the increasing use of AI in grant research and preparation. It was noted that he said grant quality is improving with the AI assisted drafting and of course combined with human review, and that it's leveling the playing field for municipalities that previously lacked grant writing capacity. But of course, the flip side of that is that competition now is increasing as more communities are adapting these tools. So for the communities that were previously doing really well with their grant writing, it's actually increased the level of competition so that so it's something to be on the radar. Then for the Economic Development Committee meeting, February 24th, we received a presentation from Good Even Associates regarding the Small Community Opportunities Program and including their consultant overview and final reports. So there's going to be more information come through to council on those reports. So I really haven't included a lot of that here, so that'll come forward and council will receive the full reports. And there was also a recommendation to forward, the one report was really centralized on ag services, so it was recommended that that be forwarded through to the Ag Services Board. So on February 24th, also in the evening, I attended the CAN4 Public Advisory Committee, so for PAC, and they presented an Alberta Community Hazardous Fuels Reduction Program, and also a report, a comprehensive report summarizing the 2025 workshop titled What Do PAC Members Value Most? This was the first meeting I attended with that committee, and I thought it was actually very interesting, very informative, and had some really great information coming out of that. So then yesterday, we had a meeting with the Emergency Management Committee, and the highlights included an update on their emergency response revisions, their AEMA audit findings, which will be coming to council at a later date, and identification of updates including like their risk assessment training plan and emergency social services plans. So, and that a functional exercise was noted as being planned for Q4. So administration is working to bring the plan into full readiness, and they'll end up bringing that back to council. So then, in addition, just to kind of finalize that, there is upcoming events that I wanted to mention. The Chamber of Commerce is having their monthly mixer Thursday, March 12th at the Garage Brew House from 6 to 9. They've been getting a lot of really good turnouts for their mixers. So I'd certainly highly recommend our business community or anybody that's interested to attend. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion, questions for Councillor McNeil? Councillor Wright?
Okay, February 18th, I attended our first West End Bus Committee meeting. Reeve Cush is the chair and I am now the vice chair. We had gotten an email from them that they got a $5,000 donation from the Friends of the Lac St. Anne Foundation. And another highlight, well I guess it's not a highlight, but they did apply for a transportation grant and that was denied, so hopefully next year they can get that. The same day I did go for lunch with CAO Ferris. I know council had been discussing if we were going to continue doing that. We had already planned it, so we went forward with that. So we just got to know each other a little bit better. I just spoke about goals and how things were going so far on council. That evening, I did attend the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting with council. On the 23rd of February, we had a Protective Services meeting. They do have an item that's later on in the agenda, so we'll discuss that later on. And on the 23rd in the evening, I did attend the Blue Ridge Community League meeting. We have a new executive. One of our executives is returning. Everyone else is brand new. We had a really good turnout. There had to have been about close to 30 people there, so it was amazing for Blue Ridge. Right now, they're just planning a next community function for March 28th, and they're going to do a spring fling. So everyone in the surrounding communities in the county are all welcome for that. It's at the Blue Ridge Community Hall from 12 to 4.
Councillor, discussion for Councillor Wright? Councillor Dean?
Thank you. I had a relatively busy couple weeks as well. I'm not gonna go into great detail about the Growing the North conference because Councillor McNeil did a really good job, but I did want to just highlight a couple of items in addition to what she had said, and that is our closing plenary speaker was Mike Downey, and he's Gord Downey's brother, and he has led a life of film production and music production, etc. And he really emphasized what Councillor McNeil was talking about, tell your story. You know, he had talked about Terry Fox, and he talked about various foundations that all kinds of Canadians have been involved in, and sometimes those things fly under the radar. You don't know they're out there, and then when you hear about it, you're impacted by that. So that was one highlight. Another one was there's a gentleman by the name of Len Morissette, and he is an Indigenous gentleman from Grand Prairie, so he's born and raised in the city. He's a member of a band in Saskatchewan, but he talked about his journey and storytelling and how he wanted to learn about life on the West Coast. You know, here he is, a city kid growing up in the city, and he just took an interest. And the end result was that he and his company, CIA Incorporated, did a 8-part series on the ecosystem off Sunshine Coast and specifically about herring and how it impacts so much of what takes place in that area. And again, what was most impactful for me was how impactful that story was. You know, to listen to is you talk about herring. You know, how interesting can herring be? Well, it was pretty interesting. I wanted to give a shout out to the Trailblazers Snowmobile Club. They held their rally over the past weekend, and even in spite of the challenges with snow, so Saturday the 21st, they had 177 riders that were age 14 or older and 25 that were 14 or younger. And then the next day on a Sunday, they organized a guided tour of the Golden Triangle, and they had 60 riders for that. So a big shout out to those guys. They had to shift because their southern trails where they normally hold their rally off of Westward Hall were not passable, but the northern ones they put a lot of work into. So good for them. I attended the GMP meeting and the ECDEV meeting. Yesterday, I attended the Lac Saint Anne Foundation, and that organization is well run and well positioned. We all know that in the not too distant future, there's going to be an even greater need for seniors housing. For me, part of the learning experience is that housing doesn't just have to be for seniors as well. So there's an opportunity for that organization to enter that lack of housing equation. So I'll have more to report as the year goes on that. But that's everything.
Thank you, Councillor. Questions for Councillor Dean? Councillor St. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I as well attended the Growing the North conference. I found the conference very well put together. In addition to Councillor Dean and Councillor McNeil, we were able to connect with representative of the Northern Alberta Development Council, so that was nice. Did attend the training session where Hummingley presented with respect to mental health. I did bring back, excuse me, 2 of the toolkits, and I've given one to economic development and one to emergency management team. And Hummingley has a number of YouTube videos that staff and or council can view at their own leisure. I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting on February 24th. Councillor McNeil has covered that very well. Thank you. The only addition to the Emergency Management Committee meeting on February 25th was that I was appointed the chair of the committee, and our next meeting is March 23rd, 2026. specifically to discuss the EMR budget. I did bring forward to administration some local issues. One was with respect to a ratepayer sign that was posted along a road asking the grader to blade the potholes out of the cold mix. I'm not sure on the status of that one at this point in time. I also had a concern regarding a business listing on the county's welcome guide, and that is being currently looked into. I also had a concern regarding construction of a road, Township 584. I was able to review the budget and the capital plan and report that that was in a future year, and the ratepayer was happy with that response. And I have the community lunchbox address on February 28th. If I could get administration to provide me with speaking notes, that would be great. And the Agricultural Service Board dinner on March 6th at the Westward Community Center, I hope to be able to attend. Thank you.
Councillor, any other questions for Councillor St. Martin? Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, I attended the governance priorities meeting on the 18th. And the only other meeting I had was yesterday was the FCSS. We had a special meeting to start to figure out with all of the challenges that we have to keep our funding in line so that we are able to deliver the programs that we're able to deliver. The board is meeting today, this morning. I have to give a shout out to that group because they are doing a really good job in Fort-Assiniboine. I believe now they have over 50 people that they're serving. They do an intergenerational sort of a get together now, which has been hugely successful. It's brought young people and parents and grandparents together for in a couple of evenings. They're also working in alignment with the Ag Service Board in Barrhead on the Agno Mental Health Awareness Program, which was part of initiating 2 or 3 years ago. And unfortunately, we have to, because the funding from the Alberta government was not as much as before, they were finding different ways to collaborate and collectively with organizations to keep that rural awareness going. They also started a food bank, which is outside of the purview of FCSS, but because the people are there and they have the volunteers that would take that over, they're doing some food bank services in Fort-Assiniboine now. So I would suggest that the participation that Woodlands has had in that for that area has been hugely successful. So thank you for doing that. And I'd like to extend an invitation for everybody to see if you can get some young people to come out to the Ag Service Board supper. It's just a good get together. The rural culture is obviously going to be there. It's interesting. It's much the same when we have our Ag Service Board convention. There's usually different from our May conventions. So it would be really nice for anybody who is thinking of coming to grab a few people and attend that supper. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Questions for Councillor Coogan? Go over some of the highlights from mine here. Just touch on the West End bus committee there. A couple of things that they are looking at could make some changes administratively. They're looking to see, we'll say, the current structure. If an issue happens, they're not kind of a lot of gray area discussion over who's liable, given that it's funded and supported by 3 different municipalities and kind of how how it all runs. So they are doing a review currently to see if the current, and not just the West End bus, but the East End bus as well, the other half of the committee, to see what is the best process, whether running the way that we currently are or incorporating it and having it kind of as its own entity. So if there's an issue, everything kind of runs that way. So there are discussions anyways, and I mean, from a liability standpoint, some of the concerns that were raised from administration in that room are definitely valid. So we'll see where that goes, but if changes come that could obviously affect the agreements that we have, and there might have to be new agreements drawn to be able to continue with the program. Attended the Woodlands Library meeting, I guess via telephone last night. I'd like to thank the girls up there for allowing me the opportunity to that. I know Councillor Whitten mentioned it, but they do a fantastic job up there with the programming and the just the services that they provide for the community. At the GNP meeting, I had a meeting with Ray Hiltz, Mayor from the town of Whitecourt. Just informal discussion, talking around kind of where things are on both sides, and a couple ideas that he put around that I guess they're informally having at their council, and have at this council too, is to see if there's similarities in some of our services or stuff that we could do where maybe we can reach and work together collaboratively to reduce costs. And again, it's just a blue sky discussion how that plays out or how that works. I'm not sure. I know I also have some hesitancies in getting where we're too intertwined, and as councils change, we could end up with issues like we had before also. But even if it's on a service call, if we have infrastructure equipment sitting around, then maybe they're in a deficit where they're behind and they need help, and maybe we can find those synergies to work together. On that same list though, he was also mentioning maybe as we progress in this relationship on the EDO end, we can try to work where we're jointly trying to bring in, instead of competing for projects or competing for investment, trying to see, I guess, and I know we've had these discussions around council and with administration, but there are projects that are better suited for our municipality, and there will be projects that are better suited for the urban municipality, and trying to work together and see what we can collaboratively come up as kind of an index of what we have available or where things would work, and jointly work on trying to bring those investments together instead of competing with each other. So again, good discussions. It was a good meeting with Ray. The protective services, sat in on that one, it's the alternate, but showed up to the meeting there, showed him my invite, and it was a really good meeting. One thing I actually really enjoyed, kind of a discussion that come out of it, is they are working with the youth committee as well, their kind of advisory end, and they're gonna be looking at doing positive ticketing again this year with kids in the area. So, and focus around bike safety, so kids are wearing their helmets or doing stuff properly or at that end, and having a discussion with them. And right now they're looking for volunteers or donations so they can get slushy coupons or ice cream coupons, or just to reward them for good positive behavior. So look forward to seeing that out there. I know that they have had stories of doing this in the past and pulling up behind some kid in a bike and the kid being panicked and taking off down the street. So we'll see what happens. The Ensemble Ag had a meeting there. One thing I actually really have to give kudos to this group for, they are developing a multi-year capital plan for the ag hall. I know a lot of our other committees and groups and smaller don't really have this, but they're looking at a lot of the needs that they have, both with their facility in the Ball Diamonds and their expansion in the Ball Diamond, and what they can do. And this way they at least, and obviously it's kind of a living document, things change as needs progress, but they're trying to at least put something out so as committee members change, they have this plan set up there and the possible funding models and everything behind or beside that for how it'll work. So I have to give them kudos. It was a lot of work that the member there did and provided, and all of the group kind of had input in it. So it was nice to see. At the end of that one, CAO Ferris was having a meeting at the Ensemble Fire Hall. I managed to make it over there and make sure they didn't have them strung up in the hall there, but apparently went really good. I know there was a lot of communication on, we'll say, how things are perceived versus how things actually are, and I think having those face-to-face conversations with the chiefs in the halls and having Mr. Ferris present was definitely relaxed a lot of those tensions that were there. And for the part that I was there and the conversations after, I believe it was a very, very productive meeting. So I'd like to thank Mr. Ferris for his time for making it around to the halls. I believe Ensemble was the last one on his list. Only other thing I had in there was the metrics group. We had the organizational audit at the end of our last council meeting I had to make it for. nothing really stands out there, just standard questions, you know, if we have concerns with things, if we, you know, foresee embezzling, or if we see any, you know, like, yeah, just things like those to kind of stand out for them to kind of target or look for. I personally don't think we have anything like that happening in the organization, but from, I guess, what I see, and then we'll see what they find when they come out. So it was a good phone call with them, and that's what I have on my list. Any questions? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, a question and a comment. I'll start with the comment first. Really happy to hear your report about the nature of your conversation with the mayor of the town of Whitecourt. You know, everybody knows that when investors go looking for a place to invest, they want to see places that have a unified front, and so that's a tremendous first step, I think. The question is, have we invited anybody from the Whitecourt Town Council to the spring RMA?
Not this spring, we had the invite for the fall, wasn't it?
No, we have it budgeted so that we can send two for each,
Okay.
one in the fall and one in the.
Okay, so I'm not quite done, so because the last I heard it being discussed around the council table was that we were going to start to allocate money for the fall. And I'm happy to hear that, but I just wasn't aware of that, so I don't know who made that decision or how the invitation took place or anything like that.
Again, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Mr. Ferris?
I guess so the discussion occurred during the budget discussions on wanting to invite two individuals like they did to the unis.
Yeah.
It was incorporated within the budget.
Okay,
The invitation was sent out to the mayor and deputy mayor, I believe.
To the CAO
So-
and.
See, okay, yeah, it was sent, yeah, so we did have two spots, we have the rooms booked for them.
sure.
So that was the discussion, based on the desire to have it in our budgets for 2026 and the fact that the interim budget was adopted with it in it.
Yeah,
We
no,
just
great,
ran with it.
fantastic. So is that both spring and fall?
Believe it is both spring and
Okay,
fall.
excellent, awesome, thank you.
And thank you, the call with Mayor Hiltzer. It is something we're trying to do regularly, so at least once a month we get together and have discussions.
Excellent, yeah, that's great.
Councillor McNeil?
Thank you. Just speaking to that, I spoke with Councillor Braun on Tuesday, and Mayor Hiltz and Councillor Braun are attending the RMA, the spring session.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Oh, okay, so that's first.
Okay. Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, if there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion that council receive the council reports for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? You know, we're a couple minutes past the delegation time. Are they in the lobby waiting? Okay, we can get to our delegation here at 10 o'clock. Mr. Ted Uyghur. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
No, your microphone's
It's
still on.
Weicker, actually.
Weicker. All right, good morning, sir.
I'm flexible.
Well, I'll start here. We'll do a quick introduction around the table here, so you know who we got in the room before we get to you here, sir. I'll start down at the far end there with Mrs. Slutwig.
Joan Slutwig, Director of Community Services.
John Orwa, Director of Finance.
Alan Dean, counselor.
Karen St. Martin, Councillor, Whitecourt East.
Peter Kilkin, councillor for Freeman River Goose Lake, Division 6.
Dave Cush, I'm the Reeve of the county and the counselor for Anselmo.
Jenna Wright, Councillor for Blue Ridge.
Patricia McNeil, Councillor for Whitecourt West.
Benny Whitten, counselor for Fort Assiniboine Timmune.
Matthew Ferris, CAO.
Tracy Mendis, Manager of Legislative Services and Communications.
Thank you for that, and with that, I will leave the floor for you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Reeve. So I'm Ted Weicker. I'm president of a firm called Catalyst. I think you've heard a bit about us. We're based in Vancouver, but we're pretty active across the country. And I'm going to be leading the development of the strategic plan from our side. And I'm really looking forward to working with you on this. I've had a pretty good chance to get to know CAO Ferris kind of through the initial steps. I'm really excited about coming up. I'm spending the entire week, not next week, but the following week, and we'll do a group session there. Hopefully I'll get a chance to meet with you guys, some individually as well while I'm up there, and of course I'm meeting with the departments and other people while I'm there. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what our approach is. So we're going to be working together for quite a long time. I think the initial work here will carry throughout much of the year, by the time we get into the actual implementation of the strategic plan. And there's also a component where we'll come back about a year afterwards and do a bit of a review in terms of how things have been going, what might need to be tweaked, whether it's on the performance measurement side or on the actual strategy side going forward. So what I thought I'd do is spend maybe about 15 minutes just kind of giving you a bit of an overview of our approach and kind of walking you through the process we intend to follow, and then throwing it open for any questions. I'm excited to hear from you. So is that showed up on your screen there?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay. So what I thought I'd do is I'll give you a little bit of background in terms of the purpose and objectives, our understanding of what we've been asked to do, our approach, where we kind of mix a bit of a top-down, bottom-up approach. I think it's important to begin with a real clear understanding of the council and your perceptions and expectations, and then working bottom-up from the departments up, and then working towards aligning the departments, the directorates, and the council. I'll give you a bit of an overview in terms of the phases. Very quickly, I think walk through the kind of phase by phase, some of the key elements of our approach. I think we prepared a work plan, which hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at, which is pretty in depth. I'll do kind of a higher level review. Focus mostly on some of the key elements that I really wanted to highlight.
So I'll hold you for a second here, Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair to, I don't know, administration or to our consultant. So this was not in our package. Is there an opportunity for this to be sent to us so we can follow along? Cause I'm having a hard time reading that.
Sure.
Or are you okay?
Can you make it full screen, Ted?
It isn't.
No, it's not. If you hit the little symbol in the bottom right corner, it'll pull it full screen.
Sorry, what was that?
The bottom right corner, the generate the slideshow, right next to the minus button.
Okay.
Should work.
I haven't had this before on a online presentation.
Can it just be sent to us?
Yeah, we can email it to you. Do you have it in the email right now?
Let me try and reshare.
Also, Ted, if you just want to email it to me directly, I can forward it to all of council right now.
I think it's that little screen, the fourth one from the left.
Yeah.
On his screen.
Yeah.
Has it been sent, any? Did you get it?
Yeah, it has, did it, Ron?
No.
We're just waiting for that leg in the system possibly.
Did you send it to council as a whole, Ted, or just myself?
No, just you, Matt.
Sorry guys, but I couldn't see that, so.
It's okay, I was trying to see where that followed in
Yeah,
the
no,
program
that-
here also.
It's unusual, I mean, we do a lot of presentations for council, I'm not quite sure what the challenge is.
Can you click the from a slide? Yeah, that should generate it. I clearly need stronger glasses if I'm this close.
Don't fall.
There we go, finally got it. It should be in everyone's inbox now.
Okay, I think
We have it now, Ted.
Excellent.
I think we're good to continue here, we've got the emails.
Okay, great. So sorry about that, that is unusual. So in terms of the objectives, we've been basically asked to do three things. One is to refresh the strategic plan. So the last plan ran from 22 to 25. We'll be developing basically a 5-year plan from 26 to 30, kind of updating it. The previous plan was pretty high level. I think in this case we're spending, I suspect, a lot more time than was done there, than in terms of developing individual business plans and making sure that those are aligned. The second part of it, as I mentioned, is to make sure that business plans are being integrated well or aligned well, and that we've got strong KPIs around the key activities that are going to be undertaken. And the third element is really around performance measurement. It's putting in place a pretty strong performance measurement system in terms of how the county will report back on the activities that are outlined in the plan, so how the departments will report up to the directors, how the directors will report to the CAO, how the CAO and directors will report to the council and out to the public as well. So the three key elements I think that were highlighted in the RFP that were key are first of all, making sure that whatever we're developing is measurable, that you're able to report back on, that it's visible both in terms of the strategy itself and the reporting, and it's consistent, and that we've got good alignment between the things that are happening, for example, at the department level and the overall objectives. So we've spent, we got going, I think, fairly early in January, and spent quite a bit of time. CAO Ferris sent me a lot of background material. I think we had over 100 files to pour through. Went through those in a fair amount of detail to understand kind of what data is available, what information is available, and what we're going to need to collect and refine as we go forward. Went through those documents and developed the work plan. So our approach is a mixture of a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So what we're proposing is we're starting at the kind of the top level. We're gonna spend quite a bit of time with you. I'm hoping to do some individual interviews with you. Hopefully next week we can do some in advance of the workshop session. We're going to do the workshop with you on the Tuesday, a week Tuesday, and spend a good amount of time with that. Take away our notes. We'll be feeding them back to you, and there's typically a bit of a refinement process as we work towards a kind of a draft vision, mission, set of values and strategic priorities. Then we're moving to more of a bottom up. So I think for us to really be adding value, we need to really understand the departments. We need to understand the directorates, and making sure that we understand, first of all, their strategic priorities, and then second of all, how we can measure those, and then third of all, making sure that they're aligned with the overall strategic directions. We'll then come back to you probably sometime during the summer. We can talk about what time works best from your perspective.
Can I just hold you for a second, sorry, Councillor St. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. Ted, I see your pictograph here about top down, starting with council. I'd like to indicate that ratepayers are before council.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to get input from them as we're going through that process. So in terms of the timeline, we've prepared the work plan. The next step is really getting into initial consultation phase with you, with staff. We'll also be attending the session with Whitecourt a week, I guess 2 weeks tomorrow. We'll then focus on the business plan. So we've allocated a fair amount of time to that. It'll be a bit of an interactive process, I think, as we work towards seeing final business plans. We'll do the engagement session. I'll give you a little bit of details in a minute on that. Come back to you, try to finalize the framework. Then we'll get into the reporting side, so really the development of the performance measurement framework and the dashboards and the processes through which that reporting is going to happen. We'll then launch the strategy through open houses and some other means. Work with the staff in particular in terms of implementation of the strategy. And as I mentioned, the plan is to come back sometime around 12 months afterwards and do a bit of an update. So in terms of the phases, so the first phase we're in the midst of right now. So I will follow up with you after the meeting today. I wanted to kind of get introduced or introduce myself to you as a group, but I'd love an opportunity to chat with each one of you before we actually do the workshop. So I'll be following up and see whether or not we can set up a time either remotely next week, or if we have a chance on the Monday before the session, that would be great too. Secondly, we'll be doing the workshop on March 10th, and as I mentioned, participating in a joint session with Whitecourt on the 13th. And coming out of that, the objective is to develop what we call a draft framework, where we'll have the vision, mission, values, and a preliminary set of strategic directions, which may get refined as we go through that process. The next phase is then to drill down to the business plan. So it's spent a lot of time interviewing directors, the department managers, some of the stakeholders, perhaps members of the various committees, working towards finalizing those business plans, making sure that they're aligned with the preliminary strategic directions, and then also taking a step back and looking at the interdepartmental relationships. The deliverable there is really the business plans and joint implementation plan. It's at that point then I think we'll be knowledgeable enough to go out to the public And so we're planning a variety of different things. So we'll be doing a community survey. What we've talked about is setting up a website where people can go to get information about it. They can provide comments, they can track the progress that we're making. They can also complete a survey to provide input that's going to go into the plan. We also like to do staff engagement strategies. I think it's important when we've got a preliminary framework to go out to the staff to hear from them as well. We planned a stakeholder roundtable, which will have various community organizations, key stakeholders, rights holders that involve ratepayers, as you mentioned. And we'll do a session with some of the advisory committees as well to get input from them. Coming out of that is really a what we heard document. So we want to get the business plans largely done. We want to get the what we heard, that initial consultation done before we come back to you again to try and finalize that framework. And so at that point, we're planning a full day session with you. And typically there's quite a bit of going back and forth after these sessions, leading to the draft strategic plan. In phase 6, then it's really around that performance measurement. As we're going through the process of reviewing the business plans, we'll be doing that with a measurement lens in mind. But once we get a finalized strategic plan or nearly finalized strategic plan, then we'll go back and make sure we've got formally defined key performance indicators, we've got data sources, and then we can design dashboards and systems for being able to report up and out on the progress made. Then October, November, we're looking at launching the session. There'll certainly be an open house, the other ways in which we try and promote it. At times, some of our clients want the strategic plan to be finished at that point. In other cases, it may be, depending on the feedback we get from the community, the council may still be open to making some tweaks at the very end to reflect kind of key comments that were received. We'll develop a formal document, a strategic plan. We'll kind of work with you in terms of how much narrative we want around it. Are we really just trying to capture the higher level of it, or are we trying to get into something more detailed? We're a bit open to other approaches. We certainly used other approaches, and then a one-page summary where you really do condense it down, whether it's an infographic or just a narrative summary. We're then being asked to provide some implementation support, which will be meeting with the departments and the directors and so on, in terms of planning out how we can kind of support that implementation process, getting the dashboards up and going. And that takes us to basically the end of this year, and then coming back about a year later just to see whether there's a need to update the implementation plans, whether that performance measurement strategy is working as effectively, and assisting in developing a summary of the results from EOM.
I'm just
So
gonna hold
that's
you,
a
hold you for 2
very quick
seconds.
summary.
Hey, Councillor Dean?
Thanks, through the chair to Ted. Within that section, talking about the public open house, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
perfectly.
So I see that very, very traditional method of trying to gain feedback. Is there an opportunity, and maybe this is a question for administration and specifically Mrs. Nelson, can you do things like Facebook Live or have live stream so that people at home can participate rather than travel? Is that safe? That could we add that in?
Yeah.
And perhaps, it's done in conjunction with the public open house, but while you're there,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, particularly given, the distances between some of the communities and where we're actually going to be doing the open house. So we could both broadcast live, stream live the open house, but we could also make something available after the fact and give people an opportunity through a website to provide feedback.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, you're good to continue, sir. You're good to continue, if you got anything else here while I don't think we have any other questions.
No, I think that's it.
Okay,
Sorry.
no worries.
Kind of partway through on that.
Let's start, I guess, questions, start with Councillor McNeil, then over to Councillor St. Martin.
Thank you for your presentation, Ted. Just my question is in regards to the methodology and what you had mentioned about the top-down approach. I guess I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to the idea of having the work done on the business plans before the public engagement. So I guess my concern is that we don't get too far into this plan, then engage with the public and find the public wants to go a completely different direction.
I think there's a couple of points to be made there. One is there will be an overlap between them. That public consultation process will start partway through the process of developing the business plans. Secondly, I think the areas that public tends to provide the most meaningful input is in things around the vision, mission, values, and especially the broader strategic priorities. So what they consider to be the most pressing issues. And so those typically can still be filtered. We will not have finished the strategic plan at that point. So this is information we'll carry forward to you when we do the full day workshop. And so I think there still is a fair amount of flexibility there to be able to adapt to the responses that we're going to receive. During the process, we may find, people often identify very specific issues that they're interested in. We can certainly carry those forward. But from a strategic point of view, sometimes those are operational issues rather than strategic issues. And so we'll have to see on the nature of the input, but I don't think certainly at the point when we're out to the public, we're still a fair ways away from the final document. So they're still able to provide meaningful input and for that to be reflected in whatever we're producing.
Thank you. Councillor St. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I just wanted to say, I really like this comprehensive approach. And I want to thank administration for initiating this process. And I'm looking forward to the process. Thank you.
And maybe I'll just chip in there as well to say it's actually pretty unusual. Most of the strategic plans that end up getting done are either very high level, where we're working with council around kind of broader strategic priorities, but not developing a performance measurement strategy and not working on the business lines. Or we're actually developing strategies at the departmental level. So we're developing a economic development strategy or an emergency management strategy. And I think the fact that we're doing this comprehensive thing, I think it's unusual, particularly for a smaller community, and I think it's great. And it's the reason why I'm personally quite involved in the project. I think I want to see this through.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments from council? I know we're all pretty excited to see where this goes and where this takes us. See anything else here? Any closing remarks there, sir, before we make a motion to move forward?
No, I think that's it. I'm looking very much forward to actually meeting everybody in person and spending quite a bit of time with you guys.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Dean?
Just prepared to move the council receive the presentation from Mr. Weicker, Catalyst Research Group, regarding the strategic planning work plan for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor St. Martin?
Sorry, there was an.
Mr. Reeve, I think there's a second portion to the motion.
just check, administratively, was that 2 motions, or did you want that?
We can do it as 2 motions, it's probably best as 2 motions, but we
Okay.
tried to lump it in as one.
Okay, so motion on the floor, any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? That's moved, and then we have a second motion, Councillor St. Martin.
I'll move that council adopt the public participation plan as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion, Councillor Dean?
Friendly amendment, can we say, as discussed? Presented, with, I'm trying to make sure that we
Capture
don't
the
lose, yeah.
online.
With regards to strategic 2026 strategic planning, would that be?
I
No.
believe his intent is to capture it like the Facebook Live or some type of online portal as we were discussing.
Yes, that I would accept that,
So instead of as presented, as discussed.
yes.
Okay, amended motion on the floor, any discussion on the amended motion? Seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? That's moved. And thank you very much again for your time, sir. We'll see you here soon, it looks like.
That sounds great. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get to 10.1, correspondence and information items.
And those are just a list of the correspondence and information that's been forwarded to council throughout the month. Just accepting for information is what we're requesting.
Councillor Wright?
I'll make the motion that council receive the correspondence and information items as circulated.
Councillor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I will call that question, all in favor? It's moved, we've been just over an hour, we're getting into, I guess, the department reports. Do we want to take a break or do we want to continue here? Take a break? Okay, it's what do we got here, different clocks, 10:38 in the clock, I guess, behind Councillor McNeil. We'll come back 10 minutes on that clock, so 10:48 we'll be back. Snow will off and we'll take our 10-minute break here. So 10:48.
Tell my wife she's not gonna be happy to hear that.
Back on. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order here. We're on to 11A1 RCMP 2025 Q3 reports and 2026 prioritization.
Thank you, Reeve Kush. So the Q3 reports was sent to council by email several weeks ago. There were some questions there that were asked. I do have some answers. Originally, this item, when we built it, we had planned as a delegation of both the Barrhead and Whitecourt RCMP, not only to discuss their Q3 reports, but also to discuss their community priorities plan. So that didn't end up happening, and so as such, the question information that I was hoping they could articulate to council, I have some notes on. Hopefully it'll give you a rough idea of what those concerns are. But without going into it too much, there was some comments about staffing positions that are not fully supplied, and how those are costed. So the response I had was, when a position is vacant, there is no cost to the MPSA or PPSA for the vacant position if it's been filled, and the incumbent is away on a temporary absence known as a soft vacancy. The contract partner is no longer directly billed for the employee, rather indirectly charged through the division's administration rate and charges. Only actual costs are invoiced to contract partners, which is determined by calculating full-time equivalent for a position over the fiscal year. The FTE is the total number of regular members working. It excludes those on personal leave or special leave, and those that are working for 1 full year. If a position is filled with the member only half the year, the municipality is only billed for half an FTE. In addition, once a member is placed on special leave, also known as temporary absence, i.e. paternity leave, medical leave, leave without pay, they are not included in the counts. And so as per the report, the Whitecourt detachment had 1 hard vacancy and 1 member on graduated return to work, so not included into the FTE reports. It was asked if that we now have a relief teams that are dispatched out of Leduc and Cochrane, and we had asked that a report in the future include any relief positions, so they said they will incorporate that into future reports. There was an inquiry about the unfortunate increase of spousal abuse reports that were higher than last year, and potentially the implications that may have on FCSS, and also whether that was a repeat offender issue. There were some repeat offenders, but overall, unfortunately, it's showing a steady increase in spousal abuse occurrences, and their comment was any additional supports would be appreciated. So it isn't, I don't wanna say unfortunately repeat offenders, cause we shouldn't have repeat offenders, period. But it is a mixture of repeat offenders and new cases, unfortunately, when it comes to spousal abuse.
Sorry if we get too far here, Councillor Dean.
Thanks for the chair to our CEO. Maybe you said this and I missed it, I apologize if that happened, but our council, our previous council, had been told by our RMA representative, and it was confirmed by the staff sergeant at the time, that if a detachment is allocated, let's say 10 members, but due to vacancies because they can't fill those 10 positions, there's only say 8, the municipality is still billed for all 10 of those positions. That's correct?
I haven't been part of those conversations, so I'd have to believe it's correct.
Okay, so I just turn it back to the gentleman that were on that previous council. Is that not what you believe?
That was a discussion from 2 staff. We had the Barrhead staff sergeant,
Right.
and the Whitecourt staff sergeant, plus at RMA was a discussion at RMA and the convention as well, because the funding that the municipalities pay is based off, I believe, is our assessment. Or you know, something along those lines. It's not a calculation per member per se, as because it floats all over the municipality. And what we're paying for, if it's 10, and again, the conversation I had, if it's 10 officers, doesn't mean that that's 10 officers that are actual boots on the ground. That could be 2 officers and 8 administrative staff. And however, that hierarchy works in the office at that time, in which we don't have a say in that. Those are contracts with the province, not contracts with municipalities. And that was,
Okay, so coming back to my question, if there's a vacancy, so, you know, in your example of 2 officers and 8 admin staff, if there was a vacancy, we'd still, it's my understanding you'd still be paying.
or
Yeah, so I'd ask our CEO, can you, it's not time pressing, but can you just look into it and get clarity on that, please?
Councillor St. Martin.
So based on this discussion, my thoughts go to, you know, is there an under-over levy that is adjusted in the following year for those types of instances? And yes, if the CEO can report back, that would be great.
Mr. Ferris, you can continue, please.
Certain. So in addition, with the initial intent of having both the Barhead and White Court detachment here to discuss directly with council what the plans were. And since they're not here, there was subsequent discussions at a protective service meeting that the Reeve has mentioned that he was a part of, where the town has also conducted a survey where people can rank the themes based on what they believe is a priority. We were gonna bring that as another agenda item at the next meeting, just due to the deadlines and the changes of the delegations. But it was requested as an emergent item to be incorporated into this. The proposal would be, assuming council supports the motion that's provided to you, we will set up a SurveyMonkey survey today, or not, I don't wanna guarantee to this week, in the event that it doesn't occur today, that asks residents to rank the priority areas, crime reduction / property crime and theft, crime reduction for crimes against persons, reduce drug offenders or offenses, traffic safety, police community relations and visibility, and crime prevention. And the idea is they can click and drag them into whatever order. We would provide those results to the RCMP to meet their deadlines, and we would provide it both to the White Court and Barhead detachments, because we have the blessing and the curse of having multiple RCMP. Quite honestly, I would also refer it to the other detachments that also serve our peripheries, so they can incorporate Woodland's priorities, but also bring that back to council as an information item. Now, if council would like a final say on the results and reprioritize outside of just the public survey, we can amend the motion so that it's to bring back at our March meeting. That would still comply with the deadlines requested by RCMP if you would prefer to vet the rankings before the survey gets provided to the RCMP.
If I can, for further clarification on that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Councillor Wright, you were in there too. They did have conversations about just for clarification, I guess the questions that or the ranking portion on there was a ranking or a survey that was adopted by the town of White Court yesterday with regards to that, which was also part of the conversation of the protective services to make sure that everything is running in conjunction, so it's the same message, community members for the RCMP, for, you know, whether you're in town or you're Burley. I'm just making, you know, for clarification for everybody else who may not have seen the survey or seen that part of the town's council meeting, does this reflect the same SurveyMonkey that they adopted?
Yeah, we took the priorities and rankings from that.
And again, just for, you know, continuity, so everybody understands, part of the RCMP's mandate this year is to try and get public feedback on the priorities. They said they may or may not align or agree with, you know, the council's priorities, but this is part of their, whether it's citizens or business, the survey is also going to be put out to the Chamber of Commerce, I believe is what Louise was saying. And they were also talking that when these results come back and the priorities are set for this area, they also are going to be sharing those with Barhead as well, because of the, you know, I guess, relationship that we have in our municipality with the shared staffing. They do have a deadline of March 16th that the RCMP need to have all of this compiled into, which is obviously why the forthcoming, you know, having this as an emergent, it's timeline to get this going, and having something in conjunction with the town that, matches everything, definitely makes it a lot easier. I do agree, we have time at our next meeting to be able to have a look at it before the results are forwarded to the RCMP, and we can have our discussion, see if those align with our priorities, or if, that those can be the public priorities, we can also give our council priorities too, and they can, kind of see where the similarities and stuff are, but they wanna compile all of their stuff by March 16th. We have the information in to compile, because their active date on this this item is end of March, first part of April. With that, any, Councillor Whitten?
I think Councillor St. Martin.
I didn't see a hand over here, sorry, Councillor St. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I guess I wanted to speak a little bit to, I'm aware of 7 suicides in the area, as well as a youth suicide. And I in discussions with members in the public, there's a 2-year wait for children to access psychological services through AHS. Many families are in a situation where they can't afford access to counselors, and they don't have benefits. They're dealing with layoffs, they're dealing with loss of jobs, they're dealing with all these stressors, food security, and I've been told there's a real silo in information that the RCMP have, as well as the schools, as well as AHS, and I guess the communication is getting mixed up when people are trying to access services or help. And so definitely, if we have an opportunity to speak with the RCMP, I'd like to know, what are they doing to break down those silos and have the necessary information to be able to refer people accurately. And then I also was wondering what we as a municipality can do. I heard Councillor Kluken report about the agricultural health awareness program, and I'm just wondering if there's any other types of programs that the county can be accessing to support our ratepayers in mental health accessibility. Thank you.
First, yeah, Councillor Whitten for Councillor.
If it pertains to, say, Councillor St. Martin,
Okay.
Mr. D can go first.
Okay,
and then
thanks.
I'll-
Yeah, it does. There's a referral system that allows individuals to be referred to online mental health practitioners who then bill through AHS. So it's not a cost to the person that's accessing that help, and I don't wanna get further into the details because I just know the basic framework, but that system does exist, and I've heard of people accessing a mental health practitioner within literally days after a referral. So there's prioritization, etc. But coming back to the information that's kept within the silo, I really appreciate you bringing that forward, because that's that information can be absolutely crucial.
Sorry, I don't know where I was in the line. If that's a desire of council, there isn't anything stopping us from adding another category of program coordination and service awareness, and allowing our public to prioritize that as they see fit. It's kind of in there in the one bullet, but not clearly enough to add it as another category would probably be appropriate.
Councillor Whitten?
So I remember when we were at RMA last fall, there was discussion, there were some motions passed about the RCMP, about having extra boots on the ground or whatever that they were doing, and it was passed, and I was just wondering, have we saw anything come of that? And if so, has it been extra cost to Woodlands County because of those motions that were passed?
I believe Yeah, and I know the motion to move it through RMA to advocate for that, but I believe that would be contractual agreements between the province and the RCMP at that point. I don't, like, there's been no, and Mr. Ferris can probably say, I haven't seen anything as far as, only letter that's come out is the RCMP, their overall contract's been extended past, I think it was 2030, so you know, kind of confirm that portion, but I don't think there's been anything else unless you've seen anything, Mr. Ferris.
Through the chair to Mr. Whitten, no, I haven't. That said, RMA does provide an update at least once annually on where they're at with the resolutions and what they've got as a result of that. That is provided to council when we receive it. I'm not sure if you receive it directly from RMA, but when we do get it, we forward it to council in the event that it doesn't get to.
Thank you. Councilor Wright?
Through the chair, I just thought I would mention to council at our protective services meeting, some of the admin that were there were discussing like going back into the schools and really giving that mental health support. They said that they have dates scheduled for the Catholic schools to go, but the public schools, it was just still too sensitive and they just weren't quite ready yet, so they haven't provided them with any dates or availability for that yet. They still will keep working on that just for the youth. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is this list of priorities that they had given us. The RCMP wanted to stress that it was like a very high level list and that their goal was to take those topics, bring it back to our protective services meeting, kind of pick them apart and then have some more details to that and us bring that back to council.
And an example they used is if, you know, a priority was traffic safety, you'd have traffic safety as your, you know, main part, but underneath traffic safety, you would have your DUIs or intersections or, you know, kind of underneath that, but it was more of a high level approach is what the priorities are. Councillor St. Martin and Councillor Coogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to administration. I really like the idea of the survey, so thank you for recommending that. I also think when we put surveys out, it's an opportunity to educate the people. So, you know, if we could put like, did you know about the online mental health and provide the phone number and things like that, to just add that extra communication tool through the surveys.
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, it's just through the AGNO program, I know that when they initiated it, it was oversubscribed very, very quickly. But it was also under advertised. So, you know, if they would have actually been able to get it out into the rural communities as much as they could have, it would. And unfortunately, it hasn't been supported as much as we would like to see it. But fundamentally, that's where it has to be, is we have to figure out how we advocate for those support mechanisms to help the people that we need to help.
Councillor, so with that, we have a couple motions here on the docket. First one to accept for information. The second one, I believe we'll want to amend to have the survey results brought back to the next council meeting before being provided to the RC.
I'll make the first motion.
That's right.
Make a motion that council receive the provincial RCMP and Whitecourt RCMP 2025 Q3 reports for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? We have a second motion here. Councillor St. Martin?
That council direct administration to conduct a public survey to obtain input from Woodlands County residents on policing priorities for the 2026 to 2027 Community Priorities Plan, and that the results be provided to the RCMP and reported to council at the next regular meeting of council.
Thank you, Councillor. Motion on the floor. Councillor Dean?
Yeah, just a question to the motion. So the priorities are listed in this RFD. We talked about a mental health priority, so we're gonna add that into that survey.
The request from the RCMP was that the survey that goes out to the communities be the same. Just so that they're not, you have these bullets from one community and then different bullets from another community, so it just makes it a little bit harder for them to jumble everything. But we do have the opportunity still, this is just at the public end, to provide feedback on our priorities and where our stuff set at the next council meeting as well.
Okay, sounds good, thanks.
I do agree that we need to have that discussion still, but it'd also be nice to see where the community lands as well. Counselor St. Or McNeil, sorry, speaking to the motion.
Speaking to the motion, I'd ask if, for clarification, where you have and the results be provided to the RCMP and reported to council for the next meeting. It basically was the intent to bring the discussion back to the next council meeting, and at that time, we would make a motion to forward to the RCMP. So I guess my question is, would you accept a friendly amendment to remove the RCMP portion, and we would deal with forwarding it to them after council review it?
Yes.
Question there too. So amendment to bring the results to council before moving to the RCMP.
I can read the motion if you prefer it. Yes.
Yep.
The council direct administration to conduct a public survey to obtain input from Woodlands County residents on policing priorities for the 2026 to 2027 community priorities plan, and the results be reported to council at the next scheduled county council meeting.
Okay, that the intent of the motion, Councilor St. Martin?
Yes.
Okay, motion on the floor. With that, I will call the question, all in favor? That's moved. Corporate Services, 11B1, interpretation of interim operating budget report.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to members of council. Now, this RFP, I believe, is before you because it's meant to clarify the meaning and interpretation of interim budget. And I think this is based on the direction that we got from council during our regular meeting of council January 29th. And the motion was to determine through the auditors the definition of interim budget. Now, that was the starting point, so I reached out to the auditors and discussed this at length with them, and they were not committing to anything. And I think all they said was they advised that the interpretation of statutory language falls outside their scope, and therefore they would not give me any opinion. So based on that, we moved forward to touch base with the municipal affairs as well, to provide some advice. So we consulted the representatives from municipal affairs, and again, it was verbal. And I think at this point, I also involved the CEO as well. And with these two representatives, we discussed at length, and my first question to them is, could you put for me something in writing to share with council? And again, the answer is no, we don't do that. And they referred us again to MGA. Now, based on this, again, everything came back to us. And I think this is where the discussion now takes place with council. Because historically, what we've been doing is the methodology I've been using is based on the past practice, where projections are made ahead of time, then brought to council. And I think at this point, this is where I also agree with Councillor St. Martin that no expenditures should occur that would tie the hands of council in making the final decisions on the operating budget. They have to make that decision. So again, if you look at it the way it is structured, historically what we've been doing and the intention of council, if they wish to follow that route, is a change in philosophy. And a change in philosophy of that nature probably might require council resolution for us to follow. I don't know whether probably the CEO might want to weigh in, especially in our discussion with municipal affairs.
Through the chair to the council, yeah, as Mr. Orwa said, it's ultimately a philosophical and policy question on how council wants to adopt the budgets. The wording that the resolution didn't impose percentage-based or scope limitations or expenditure authority is just a point of clarity on the motion that council passed when that motion for the interim budget was. There's a level of discretion administratively. I can't speak for historically, but I believe historically we've utilized, even though a budget has been adopted as an interim. A good example of that is in economic development, there's an allocation for CT scanner. That's in there, but it's a new project, it's a new initiative. Those are the projects that we are delaying on a discretionary basis prior to the interim budget being finally adopted. And I believe that is where the root of the concern is, that we considered a new project, a new process, and maybe there's hundreds of thousands of dollars associated with it, and you're just doing your financial due diligence to make sure we're not holding your hands, and next thing you know, there's a 20% tax increase, which is not even remotely the case. And so we have used that discretion, and I do think it's a policy deficiency, that if we need to develop a policy that says adopt an interim in its completeness, which I strongly encourage, which Municipal Affairs has says is best practice, because otherwise you can be waiting into April before we really start getting to work, and that's not good governance. But establishing a policy where those thresholds or where those initiatives are better outlined to preserve council's conservative fiscal management, I think makes appropriate sense. It has just never been flagged historically that we're aware of by council. We can absolutely support and the development of a policy to address that concern going forward. But ultimately, like I said, it is a policy decision. If you're happy with their current practice, we'll keep doing it. If you're not, we can change it. If you would like, just for your own sense of concern, to apply conditions on the interim, we can make amendments to the interim budget now that says it's identical to whatever last year's was, or something along those lines. Those are all options. This item just clearly indicates a policy deficiency, and that creates inconsistencies not only for us, but for you as council. So we're just happy to have this discussion, and it's one of the good ones where everyone's right, but it's which way do you wanna go?
Councilor St. Martin, then Councilor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, and thank you, CAO Ferris. I did have a discussion with CAO Ferris yesterday, and one of the things that might help here is us receiving a listing of the operating projects so that we know what projects, because right now it's difficult to determine in the budget. So I think that would improve council's understanding of what big projects are in there, and hopefully they wouldn't proceed until we've finalized our final budget. I really like CAO Ferris's recommendation that we develop a policy around this so that they have, administration has clear direction. And I would support a motion in that, be willing to make a motion. Thank you.
Councilor Dean.
Through the chair, everything was covered by Councillor St. Martin.
Any other discussion? Okay, guess we're looking for motions. Councilor Dean.
So yeah, I'm just looking at these two motions. Councillor St. Martin, are you suggesting that we have basically three different motions, so we capture the policy?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with the first one then, that council receive the interpretation of the interim operating budget report for information.
Okay, Councilor, discussion on the motion? Seeing I call that question, all in favor? That's moved. Motion number 2, Councilor Whitten.
And I'll move that, and further that council confirm that the 2026 interim operating budget adopted December 18th, 2025 remains in effect in accordance with sections 242 and 248 of the Municipal Government Act until replaced by a final 2026 operating budget.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion? Seeing any, I'll call that question, all in favor? That's moved. And Councilor St. Martin.
I'll move that council direct administration to draft a policy or policy amendment that further clarifies the interim operating budget.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call that question, all in favor? That's moved. 11B2, 2026 operating budget open house.
I'll go with this one then. So this was requested as an item for motion, request for motion, or notice of motion, sorry, from Councillor St. Martin in relation to directing administration to facilitate community planning open houses for as it relates to our budget. And so in relation to that, our policy does allow, or does state may, when it comes to public, I cannot speak today. Sorry, ultimately, the idea was to request open houses in relation to the interim budget to ensure that it was in alignment with council and with the public's intention. We did stuff slightly different in 2025, particularly within the engagement realm. We did do engagement prior to the budget adoption and before it was brought to council. The thought process there was simply having input from the public prior to our managers developing a budget, in our opinion, administratively, helps ensure that the budget actually reflects the natures of the public, rather than saying, this is our interim budget, what are your thoughts, without any engagement. So we front-ended the engagement this year, recognizing that particularly when we have done open houses after an interim budget has been adopted in the past, there is minimal public turnout, and quite often the result is staffing outnumbers the public in attendance. And while we always value the opinion of staff, that isn't necessarily who we're there to get correspondence from. And so the request was to potentially hold some open houses. With the very robust scheduling that's currently available, with committee meetings, council meetings, year-end budget, RMA, we do have concerns if we were to go the open house route. It may be very difficult, and especially with the increased involvement of the Tax and Finance Committee becoming a more integral part of our operations. We do want to hold a meeting with, or we are holding a meeting with the Tax and Finance Committee March 25th. At that meeting, we want to bring all the amendments of the budget to council, or to the committee. That further restricts the ability to actively engage with the public, summarize it, and then bring it back to the committee to ensure you have thorough review. So it was a concern. There is an option where we maybe take our previous survey, refine it a little bit, because it did open up some questions, and apply it on SurveyMonkey. The other option that we're thinking might be a good opportunity, particularly in the sense that the amount of time we had, is we've never actually utilized Facebook polls. And perhaps utilizing the Facebook polls on some key budget questions to provide some feedback on. The problem with that is you do not get the ability to distinguish who they are commenting from. They could all be Whitecourt residents or Lac St. Anne, so that is problematic. I fully recognize that. And so there's two parts of this discussion. It's here to see if council would like to do it. But ultimately, we are requesting that you direct us to adopt a public participation plan, not for 2026 budget, for 2027. We've come up with an overall analysis of, funny enough, in relation to the Facebook Lives, utilizing the polls, utilizing our ambassador program, all throughout the year to have budget and service level discussions on a complete analysis. And so we would like to get there, and in the meantime, we think it's 100% attainable to do that for the 2027 budget, and the level of engagement we will get will be unheard of in this county in how involved we've given the opportunity to our public, but particularly when it comes to the request that we incorporated for 2026 budget. Operationally, the open houses are difficult. If you'd like to do a survey, it's possible. It does reallocate some resources. We could do it. We do think the Facebook poll might be the quickest way to get some references and provide additional feedback when you look at the fact that we have over 5,000 followers on our website, which is effectively our population, and that some of our posts are getting in excess of 200,000 views. That is a good and a bad. If 200,000 people comment on our budget, I would have great concerns because they are definitely not our residents. But if we get 5,000, that's a good chunk of the county, so there's wins and losses with each option if council does believe additional engagement is necessary. We're thinking it is adequate, but we'll leave it up to council. But we do, regardless of what you decide, we do recommend that you pass the motion to give you a plan for 2027's budget.
Okay, thank you. We got a list here. We'll start with Councillor Whitten and then Councillor St. Martin. And then
So
Councillor Dean.
through the Reeve to council and administration, I see we're time crunched, we're right to the very end of the wire here, and we're all extremely busy, everybody's busy, I mean, to have a open house or anything right now it's gonna be very taxing on absolutely everybody. I would be prepared to move this motion, but I would like to add in there that there is a survey that goes out after we implement the budget, so that they can have public input to say what they would like to see in our future budget. So have the survey go out so they can put their input in and everything for our coming up 2027 budget, but have this moved today.
Councillor St. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, and thank you to CAO Ferris and administration. I did meet with CAO Ferris as well and had a discussion on this, and I can appreciate that the open house is there's a time constraint and staffing constraints, so I appreciate that. And thank you for the budget survey. If we had received this previously, I didn't remember receiving it, so thank you for providing that, because that gave me greater insight into the questions that were asked. I would point out though, however, question number 3 was, would you be interested in participating in future budget discussions or consultations? The response was 63.93% yes. And that is what I heard when I was campaigning, is that people didn't want to be consulted after we had made the decision. They wanted to be consulted during. And with that being said, I really like the options that CAO Ferris has put forward with respect to a Facebook poll or a short 2026 interim operating budget survey. And with that being said, I'd be willing to make a motion to direct administration to draft and or implement a Facebook poll on the 2026 interim operating budget to obtain ratepayer feedback during the budget process.
So we have a motion on the floor for a survey for this process. Any question on that, Councillor Wright?
Now through the Reeve to, I guess, CAO Ferris, do you think we would get more feedback from our residents if it was to be a survey versus the Facebook poll?
Through the chair, it depends. If you look at our survey, we received 69 responses, which is the most budget engagement we've received in the last 4+ years. I do think people, and I would look at it as more of an untraditional poll than the typical Facebook or than a typical municipal government's engagement. It's, here's a question with 3 or 4 options. Click the thumb, the heart, or the sad face, and we will use that as the reference guide. It is by no means an but because people can just do it on their phone relatively easy without going to another link, and the way in my head I'd forecast it is we can develop, I think we have developed, John and I, 10 or 15 questions. And so for the next 4 weeks, we can ask 3 questions a week and get some high level data, and we will also provide to the committee if there are written comments from the Facebook data. I think it ensures direct, instant responses. And my concern with the survey is people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, but everyone's life is busy with commitments of work and family, and it might not get to do it in that short period between now and the committee meeting on the 25th. So that's why I really like the Facebook option for a more quick, high-level analysis. It's also something new which will help us determine how we rely on it as we develop a plan for the 2027 budget, rather than just relying on it as a key thing and it be an utter dud.
Mr. Oro, I think you had some more.
Yeah, just a comment there. So yes, we've developed some of those Facebook poll questions and meant to clarify the findings from the last year's budget survey. But I just wanted also to clarify for Councillor St. Martin that the first survey questions that came up, I think were presented to the taxation and the committee, our first meeting, and at that point, we had only gotten about 39 people responding, and I think that is what we have on record. Then in between that time to the time we had a regular meeting of council, I think I just handed over to each. It was manual on the table because we had gotten 61, and I think that is the last one that the CEO Ferris sent to you.
Councillor Dean speaking to Councillor St. Martin's motion.
Yeah, my question does relate to the motion. It's a comment and then a question. So the comment is that information is better than no information. We need to be aware, as our CEO has pointed out, that that information could be entirely invalid or entirely valid, right? So we can draw some, we can gain some information, but it's just not. It has the potential to be information that's really not valid, so we really need to keep that in mind. The question is the budget survey that went out to residents that we got a total of 61 responses on. That survey was on the website?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, it was through SurveyMonkey. It was on our website. We also advertised it in the newspapers. I believe there was a QR code. Natasha wasn't here to verify, but there were multiple print references to it. But yes, it was an online survey. It wasn't a paper survey, if that's the question.
Okay, and I guess my follow-up question to that is it possible that people answered that survey that weren't Woodlands County residents?
There is always a possibility that when someone does a survey that they're untruthful on their locations or that the data they provide is outside of irrelevant, so it's possible.
It's possible. Okay, good, thanks.
Speaking to Councillor St. Martin's motion.
Sure, through the reeve, actually just to the motion, my question was as well in regards to the survey. If it could be shared, the survey itself on SurveyMonkey, if we could share that on Facebook, would that kind of alleviate part of that? Then we could catch both platforms, because then it could be emailed to the people that aren't on Facebook, if for the residents that would be interested that way. And then in the survey itself, we could ask them to identify their location with their blue sign number, and then we would have data that was a little bit more valuable.
Alright, any other discussion on Councillor St. Martin's motion?
Good idea.
Councillor St. Martin?
I just wanted to provide information to Councillor Wright and to Councillor Dean. The survey, in my opinion, is positive in that it can be printed off and hand delivered to elderly people, ratepayers in the county, enabling them the ability to give feedback.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other discussion on the motion?
Just have a question to clarify the motion that's on the floor. Is the motion that's on the floor for the Facebook poll, or is it for a SurveyMonkey poll?
And or both, Mr. Reeve, through the council. Yeah.
Administration copy that? Okay, motion for the survey for this budget term as we're going through. Any other discussion? Call the question then, all in favor? Okay, now back to the RFD here. Just following my list, Councillor Dean, did you have any further discussion on the RFD that was presented for the public participation plan?
Nope, I'm good.
Councillor Goodman, yeah, I'm just working my way through the list here.
Okay, yeah, through the chair to council and administration. my experience with open houses that aren't very well set up and there isn't a strategy, it's not really productive, you're not gonna get anything out of it. I agree with the proposal that we actually have a look at how we're going to have that open house, so to speak. And just as a, for the public to know, the reason that they send us to this table is because we need to know those intricate details and we accept responsibility for what we hear in our communities. And I think that, I would be very, very disappointed if we wouldn't put that back on the shoulders of the residents. Just one comment.
Councillor, go back to Councillor Whitten. Earlier you said you'd be willing to make the motion that's presented there.
Yep.
With your amendment for survey after the budget.
Yep.
So I move that council direct administration to develop and bring forward for council approval by the end of Q2 2026 public participation plan in accordance with policy G1.003 to public or to support public engagement for 2027 with the addition of Facebook and SurveyMonkey survey.
Councillor St. Martin speaking to the motion.
Mr. Reeve, just for clarification, is the addition to the motion still required if we're gonna do the Facebook and survey during the budget?
I believe his was for after the budget. And just for clarification, Councillor Whitten, I believe you're for after the budget, I guess, gathering information leading up to the next budget.
That was what, yes.
Mr. Ferris?
If I may, recognize that you haven't seen what we're working on in our offices. The scheduled plan, if we were to roll it out, would include that the moment the tax notices go out, we will be starting engagement. And we will be structuring it into, hey, are you upset with your tax bill? Well, make sure for next year you've contributed and provided that feedback, and like not that people will be upset with our tax bills, but working on the idea that no one likes to see a tax bill regardless of how small it is. And so we will be rolling that out as a requirement, and if council was to adopt the motion that was presented without the change, the plan that's brought forward will absolutely include that, and it will include the increased engagement through Facebook Live and that sort of stuff. So you can rest assured with the motion that's presented before you that those will be incorporated, and you will have the ultimate authority to adopt the plan when it's brought before you. So if there's any additional engagement that has been missed, it can absolutely be incorporated at that time.
Councillor Dean speaking to the motion.
Yeah, speaking to the motion, I'm just wondering, based on what you just said, which I think is a great idea to put that in the tax notice. The motion talks about bringing a plan forward for council approval prior to the end of Q2, which is the end of June. Tax notices go out at the end of May. Do we want to amend the motion and try and have a plan so that we can approve a plan before you include that in tax notice, or are you comfortable putting that in and then just incorporating that into the plan that we'll see later?
I think we're going to incorporate some level of engagement in the tax cert, regardless if you require a plan or not,
Okay,
just from a good governance
okay, good
perspective.
enough then, yeah, I'm fine with the motion as it is then.
Any other discussion to the motion? Councillor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeve, through to Councillor Whitten, are you willing to delete after budget the addition to the motion?
Yeah, I am.
So the motion as presented. Any other discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call that question. All in favor? That's moved. Brings us to our closed session portion. I can get a motion to go into closed session under access to information. We have 19, 20, and 26. Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, I'll move that council move into closed session pursuant to the Municipal Government Act. And 197(2) and the Access of Information Act, ATIA, sections 19, 20, and 26 at 10:30 or 11:38 to discuss information that relates to intergovernmental relations, business interests of a third party, and human resource matters.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the motion? Call that question, all in favor? And we are in closed session, make sure we are stopped.
That the council add standing closed session item per section 20 of the Access to Information Act.
I believe the recommendation from administration was 28 and 30.
Okay, sorry, 28 and 30,
Okay, thank you.
titled strategic items.
I'll call the question, all in favor? That's moved. Brings us 12.1, Council Whitten.
Move the council receive the briefing on service bylaws, agreements, service fees, and reporting requirements as information.
Thank you, Counselor. Call the question, all in favor? That's moved. And then 12.2, Counselor Dean.
I move that council receives the taxpayer's request for consideration of tax relief measures for information and that options for an alternate assessment categories be presented to the taxation committee.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll call that question, all in favor? And that's moved. Well, how much of a break do we think we need here? Just check.
Half an hour.
Okay, take a half-hour break. We'll be back 1 o'clock. We have one more item in closed session, the CAO performance review. I believe administration won't be here anyways. We can probably stop the streaming, just in for a motion for the CAO after. And then release administration, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can end stream, we'll be back at 2 o'clock.